Hi, and welcome back to the GTN show.
All eyes in the triathlon world last weekend were on the PTO US Open out in Milwaukee. We'll have all the news from that, plus all the other top-level racing around the world, including a race report from Mark, who was out at the epic Norseman Triathlon.
Yeah, we've also got less exciting news and a bit of a much-needed discussion around water quality on the UK shores, but also across the channel over in France. However, more positive, there is some news from Strava, who are encouraging us to reduce our carbon footprint.
All right, starting as we always do with some of the stuff we've noticed on their social media over the last week, and not surprisingly, a lot of it revolves around the PTO US Open and the big races that happened. Starting with this one from Frodeno, who was back at Club Le Centre in Lanzarote for the first time in a very long time, and clearly it worked. We'll get to the results of the races later on, but he had some good company there with Lucy Charles-Barkley and Annie Haug joining him at Club Le Centre in Lanzarote. They are all coached by Coach Dan Lorraine, so clearly it was a bit of a training camp for the group. He actually posted, "What a journey it's been. My first ever training camp with the German national team was on Club Le Centre in early 2002. Only 21 years later, and he's back there again. He said, "I had no clue. I just emptied the tank at pretty much every session, trying to keep up with the big guys. Daniel Unger, Andreas Reulert, Mike Petzold, Stefan Justus, Sebastian Denner, to name a few." All of those guys have long since retired. Jan is keeping going. So,
Well, for a little bit longer.
Well, for one more race.
Yeah, exactly. Moving on to the new potential generation for triathlons, Sam Long and his partner, Lara Gurden, have just welcomed a new baby boy to the world. And most kind of impressively, Sam went on to race just a few days later at the PTO US Open. Yeah, that baby was born on August 1st at 11:14 p.m., which is, quite impressive when she went into labour at 12:30 a.m. So, long labour. Harder than a triathlon, I think she'll be telling Sam.
I'm sure she would. 7 pounds, 7 ounces, and Leonardo Franco Long was welcomed to the world. Congratulations to both of you.
Yeah, congrats. Moving on, this post from Talbot Cox, actually of Paula Finley with somebody else's tri-suit. Can you guess whose?
Hopefully they managed to get that tri-suit back to its rightful owner, Christian Blumenfeld, if you didn't guess it already. And then we had this one from Sebastian Kienle, who took part in the epic Norseman. And we'll have a race report from that a little bit later. He says, "What a race, equally hard and beautiful. Thank you, Norseman Tri, for an outstanding experience." All the photos from Norseman seem to be in black and white, and I'm not sure why. I think it's just to show how epic it was.
Maybe there was no blue in the sky as well.
Yeah, maybe it was just really grey day.
Could be. Another post, the PTO US Open. Actually, this one is from it. Joshua Amberger cheering on his wife, I think she is now, isn't she? Ashley Gentle, or fiancée still?
I'm not sure.
They're somewhere on that spectrum. But anyway, he was getting very enthusiastic, and maybe he felt that Ashley Gentle needed a little bit of a uplift. So,
Josh clearly trying to carry on that tradition. It started a previous PTO race where all the female pros from the race the day before went to the side of the road and were scantily clad, let's say, while they cheered on the males, and then the males tried to do the same at the following race, and now Josh seems to be the only one carrying on the tradition.
And taking it to the next level.
Well, it looks like Ashley Gentle just had eyes for the race. She wasn't paying him any attention whatsoever. In your Tri News, you may have seen it last week. PTO announced their Athlete of the Month for July, and the PTO Athlete of the Month for July was Jan van Berkel. Not surprisingly, after he won Ironman Switzerland in Thun for the 4th time, and it was also his swan song race, his final ever race. He had already announced his retirement, and it was a way to go out on it with a bang. A very impressive way to finish your career. Not many people finish their career on a high, and I actually managed to catch up with him and chat about the PTO Athlete of the Month and also that final race. Jan van Berkel, thank you for joining us on the GTN show, and congratulations.
Thanks, Jace.
Yeah, PTO Athlete of the Month for July, and of course, Ironman Switzerland Thun winner. How are you feeling right now?
Well, I'm now 1 month into retirement, so I'm feeling fat and lazy. No, just kidding. I mean, feels awesome. Still buzzing with that finish, that fairy tale ending to a career. I mean, Seriously, I still think about what could have been better, and obviously, like even 4 weeks later, I can't come up with anything. So it's just perfect.
It does beg the question then. I mean, it's extremely rare to see athletes going out on a win, going out on a high, for the obvious reason that when you win something, everything's there for you to win again. So why would you retire? Have you been tempted to not retire, to unretire yourself, to have one more crack?
Well, I mean, my wife was a figure skater. She's been a three-time Olympian in figure skating, and she always told me, like, don't make your retirement depending on result. So whether that's a win again or chase that top 10 that's still missing Kona, I did not want to make my retirement depending on the result. So obviously that's the finish line now, and it will forever be.
I feel like your wife may have an ulterior motive for that particular piece of advice.
Well, yes, the grass was about 2 meters high before on our backyard. So, but hey,
Well,
I got that chopped down last week. So,
all right. Well, what is next for you now that you are retired? Are you straight into the working world? Or are you going to get a real job?
Well, I'm actually going to get a real job. Yes. Unfortunately, the triathlon scenery was not as lucrative as it should be, or how, depending on the training hours, we did not get paid by hours, but more by effort. But yeah, so I will have to work. I will start working on October 1st in a sports data startup. Really, I will stay connected to the sport. I'm a sports lawyer, so I really want to be involved in the sports integrity. That's anti-doping, equality questions, and inclusivity. So I always will be a triathlete, just not without a big number around the waist.
Okay, excellent. Well, congratulations again for ending your career on a high, and of course, with that PTO Athlete of the Month for July. Full congratulations from us here at GTN. Thank you for joining us, and I'm going to let you go and get back to cutting that grass and everything else that you are.
Thanks, James. Thanks, GTN audience.
Thanks, Jan.
Well, some news from Strava. Would you be more likely to go by human power to work than drive your car if you knew what carbon savings you were making? Well, this is what Strava are relying on. They have this new tag on the app which you could basically label your ride or your walk or your run or your e-bike even to work as a commute, and then they will compare, or they'll give you a number as to how much you are carbon offsetting compared to if you went by car.
Well, it's a pretty good initiative, because if it encourages even a few people to bike to work instead of ride their car, or even take a bus, so that they are getting zero carbon offset, and they can see how much carbon offset they're actually saving by riding to work, then it's a good thing, and kudos to Strava. I think maybe there's a challenge in this.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
See how much GTN can save. I'm saying this because I already commute to work, and I live the furthest away, and I already ride my bike to work. I have to be honest though, I don't really do it because I want to save the carbon emissions. It's more because finding parking in this place is impossible, and I can wheel my bike right into the office.
Yeah, I think we shouldn't let the local council hear that, because they will make parking even harder. But I mean, maybe that's one way to reduce congestion. But it's also obviously helping people to have the physical and mental benefit of going to work via human power, which is cool. But they're also using their stats and the data they're getting from this to help councils and cities actually plan to hopefully have better cycle lanes and things in the future. So it's
I think it's a good challenge. One challenge that I might be able to win.
You can set it instead of Mark for a change.
Yeah. All right, moving on to some not so good news. It seems dirty water has been a bit of an issue in the world of triathlon, and potentially still is a bit of an issue in the upcoming events. So last weekend we had the WTCS Sunderland, which included the British champs, and there were at least 2,000 athletes who took part at the Blue Flag beach of Roker Beach in Sunderland, and at least 57 of the athletes who have taken part there have gotten ill since being in that water.
Yeah, not exactly ideal. And some of the athletes have actually spoken up about this, quite vocal on Instagram. For example, Australian triathlete Jacob Birtwistle posted this, saying, having been feeling pretty rubbish since the race, but I guess that's what you get when you swim in SHIT. And then he says, swiped his other photos. I wasn't feeling great in the individual race, so decided to save myself for a good relay leg. Some positives to take away leading into Paris in 2 weeks, but the swim should have been cancelled. So pretty strong words there from Jacob.
Yeah. Well, the UK Health Security Agency has said it's going to be testing samples from the people who fell ill after that event to try and analyse what's gone wrong and where it's come from. But samples from the Environment Testing Agency, which were taken before the event on Wednesday, the 26th of July, have shown E. coli levels that were 39 times higher than the typical readings, which is ridiculously high. I mean, that is it's guaranteed to make you ill, essentially, even if you get a drop in your mouth. British Triathlon claimed that the sample was taken outside of the body of water that they actually used for the swimming event, and that they had the tests had passed the necessary thresholds for them to hold the event, and that therefore they were safe. They were deemed safe to have those events on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. It's not great.
No.
But we do know that WTS Sunderland and Leeds next year is not happening anyway. British Triathlon had already announced, not because of the dirty
because
water.
no one's going to come back anyway.
But it's not happening anyway. So really, it's not so much an issue for the future of the WTCS Sunderland event, because let's face it, it wasn't on the cards for the future anyway. However, it does raise a bit of a bigger issue, and hopefully this is actually a bit of a red flag for the powers that be to start cleaning up the beaches around the UK and stop pumping sewage out into the water.
It is absolutely appalling. Like, we live in a very developed part of the world. We're very lucky for that, and we are surrounded by a beautiful coastline, but there's so often you can't actually go swimming. So if you do live in the UK and you're going to go to the beach, do just always check online. There's quite a few apps that will tell you where's safe to swim, but also speak to your local council if you do live by the coast. And I think we need to start shouting about this, because it's really quite terrible.
Which does lead us on to our next news article, and that is that the World Aquatics dropped a bit of a bombshell this last weekend when they, at the last minute, cancelled the swimming championships, which were supposed to be happening in the Seine River in Paris, which is the same place where the Paris test event is supposed to be happening in just 10 days' time. Now we're all a bit worried that that won't be able to go ahead because of dirty water. And this is quite an interesting topic, because they are trying to clean up the Seine for the Paris Olympics in 2024. In fact, the council, the Paris Council, has spent 1.4 billion euros trying to clean up the Seine River, not just for the Paris Olympics, but because they actually want to bring back swimming in the center of the city. It was something that historically people did, and then in 1923 they actually banned it. They just said you were no longer allowed to ever swim in the Seine, and 100 years later they have now said, actually, we would really like people to be able to swim in there.
So we're going to swim there.
Yeah.
At your own
We'd
risk.
like you to swim there, but not yet. We're still cleaning it up, is basically what they've said. Now, World Triathlon have said that they are monitoring it closely, and that the health of their athletes is their first priority, and that the current quality of the water, where Paris has started to clean it up, is very dependent on the weather. So heavy rains lead to dirty water, and dirty water leads to cancelled swim events, apparently, and potentially cancelled triathlon events. But they say that, judging by the weather forecast for the next 10 days, there should be no reason why they have to cancel that Paris test event, which is coming up soon. Basically, we're now just fingers crossed that the weather cooperates for the next 10 days so they can have the Paris test event as a triathlon. They have said that the contingency is that if they can't have the triathlon, the Paris test event will go ahead, but it will be a duathlon format.
I mean, that's pretty serious, because this is a big qualifier. It's a lot of points on the line. It's also obviously actually testing the venue itself. But then on the flip side, I can imagine quite a few being quite nervous about it. And now, do they trust the organising committee after what's happened in Sunderland? So I don't envy the athletes. There's a lot of uncertainty around that.
Yeah, you definitely want your test event to be a proper test of the actual course. You don't want it to be something moderately resembling the course that you're going to do the following year.
And without a swim. Yeah, I mean, crazy.
Well, fingers crossed that the weather plays ball for the next 10 days.
On to What the Tech, Mark's favourite segment. And as you'll see, Mark is not here. He's out at the Norseman in Norway, and he has some tech news for us. Over to you, Mark.
Okay, just jumping in here quickly. I'm out at the Norseman Triathlon in Norway. More on that very shortly, but I got a bit of tech to jump in here with. This is a brand new wetsuit from De Boer Wetsuits, the same brand that sponsors the likes of Christian, Gustav, Jan Frodeno and various others. They have just released, and they released this on Friday evening ahead of the Norseman Triathlon, the Norseman 3.0. Now this is actually a slight development on their previous Fjord 3.0 wetsuit, a wetsuit designed for cold water swimming. In fact, this wetsuit on its own is designed to go down to temperatures of around 10 degrees Celsius. And technically, I imagine you could probably go down lower when paired with some other parts, such as the thermal underlayer of the polar thermal base layer. Now, developments on this wetsuit, aside from this very cool front, it's almost like fish scales, which is really neat. We also have a slight update on the legs. So we've got this zip down on the legs, which allows you to quite easily put on thermal boots, and also the same on the arms. If I can find this now, we've got a zip down here for the arms, and that allows you to just quickly pull that apart, put your thermal gloves on, and zip that back up. I'm also told, because this was tested by a couple of athletes out here at Norseman, not only was it incredibly warm, it was also very visible. A lot of their supporters were able to spot them nice and easily, and therefore also that makes it quite a safe piece of kit when you're using it out there, particularly that white bit on the arms. But yeah, with those athletes that have used it, some of them actually even reported that they were feeling too warm when they paired it with the polar fleece. So over here, they released this polar fleece earlier this year, and this again uses this thermo fur, which we've got inside the wetsuit as well, and an inbuilt hood. They've used taped seams on this, which they spent a lot of time developing, so it stops not only the water going in, but also any chafing or rubbing. But also the hood itself, so it wraps right around the face, is nicely sealed to stop any water leaking in, and therefore just holding that heat within the wetsuit as best as possible. And again, as I say, nice and visible. Cool, the logo on the back. But a neat development from De Boer, and yeah, for anyone who's considering cold water swims or doing their training in very cold environments or training through the winter, this could be the wetsuit for you.
All right, thanks for that, Mark. Now it's time for our race results section, and for that, back to Mark.
All right, well, just jumping in here because we are actually out at Norseman Triathlon filming a big video. In fact, we were following the two top men all day, which unfortunately meant I had no idea what was going on with the women's race. So I thought we'd start off actually by chatting to the women's winner, Flora College. So congratulations, first of all, absolutely amazing. But I hear it wasn't the perfect day you were maybe hoping for. What went on?
Well, thanks, first of all. It kind of was the perfect day, but that doesn't mean it was easy at all. I knew that if I was going to have any chance to have a good race, I was going to have to really pace the bike. And I realized here with all these other strong women and super strong cyclists, that meant I was probably going to start from far back. And that's basically exactly what happened. I think I got out of the swim pretty much as the first woman. And then by the end of the bike, I was 6th or 7th. And that was my rhythm. That was my thing. That's what I needed to do. But when I got off the bike and realized how far ahead they were and what position I was in, I was like, oh, this is going to be tough.
Because what was the time gap at that point?
I think it was something like 30 minutes to the first woman. And I saw my coach and he didn't even tell me the gap to first. And I was like, well, that's bad news. But I just started running and I felt amazing on the run. And I could close the gap before we got to Zombie Hill. And it took a really long time because you're running and you don't see anyone and you don't feel like you're getting closer. But I knew the times were coming down and I could get to the foot of Zombie Hill in first place. And then I knew that's what I've been training for all year. Just run up that hill, don't walk a single step, and then just keep going hard till the finish.
Now, for those that don't know, Zombie Hill comes at 25k roughly into the run, and I mean it's just uphill from there on, really. Although this year was slightly different, but we'll get into that in a second. And so much can be won or lost in that section, and I mean, yeah, you obviously ran phenomenally well in that area and in the run up to that. I mean, you've done a lot of events, differing triathlons. What is Norseman like in comparison to your standard triathlon out there?
Norseman is just this beast of a race because it's an extreme triathlon, so it's got the tough conditions, it's got that uphill run, but at the same time, it's incredibly competitive. It's the world championship for a reason. It's the one that everyone wants to go to. So you not only have to be tough, you have to be fast. And I think it helped a lot that I've done Norseman quite a few times, so I know what Zombie Hill is, and that was something I could really prepare and train for, just run it as efficiently as possible. know during the flat part of the run, okay, you got to run hard, but you have to make sure that your legs are still ready to go for the rest of it. And so, yeah, you really have to be prepared to deal with everything the weather throws at you. I've had years where I really couldn't do that and it didn't end so well. And put that together with being fast.
And we had some interesting weather out there, didn't we? Some serious rain at points. It actually cleared up, but there were thunderstorms and lightning going on. So unfortunately, they did stop the run right to the top of Gustatoppen, so it's the final 4 or 5 kilometres. So you got to the final sort of turn point and then you came back on yourself. So slight change this year. Good, bad? Pretty mixed emotions, right?
A little bit. I think it was a good call on the part of the organisers, of course, because, you know, when I got closer to the mountain, I could hear the thunder going. And my crew had already told me, you're not, you know, the top is closed, you're not going there. And I think the organisers did a great job with still making it fair, still making us run with the emergency backpacks that we have to carry. I think I'd be lying if I said I was disappointed that it was a kind of faster downhill run, because at one point I was like, I just want this to be over now. But yeah, there is a part of me that's a bit, you know, got the feeling that it doesn't really count if you don't finish on the mountain.
It does though. Yeah, well, Flora, phenomenal race. Congratulations. And yeah, look forward to your future races.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
Well, now in with the men's winner, Jon Brevold. Well, you won it last year, set the course record. This year, a slightly different year. Obviously, we're not going to the top of Gustatoppen. But how was the race with Sebastian Kienle?
It was a really great race. It was a bit different than other years because it was like a big build-up with this battle with Sebastian. And to be honest, it was more like a professional racing, because when I overtook him on the bike, then he was just like staying on my wheel, and I tried to go a little bit hard on the first climb after I overtook him, but he just stayed on my wheel. So I understood that he will probably just stick to that wheel as long as he could. And then I thought that if I go all in the last climb to Ymingfjell, then he will probably do the same and will be cooked afterwards. And yeah, that was what happened.
I mean, obviously we were following you throughout the day, and it, you said to the camera as you're going, I'm not feeling great, and you're having some stomach issues. So you still took the call to give it some on that final climb. Was there a moment where you thought maybe I won't do it? Or?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like in the middle of the run, after about 20 kilometers, that was the worst part.
Yeah. So I may have actually wound down my window at the moment that you went, and shook your head.
Yeah,
I know that sound.
yeah, that was terrible. So I don't think I've ever had like that much pain during an Ironman. It was just, like a full distance triathlon.
Yeah.
So it was. I never experienced stomach issues like this, and I knew that I'm in front. I cannot just abandon now. But I was always thinking that I'll just go to Zombie Hill, just get there. Although I was dizzy and almost like falling, it was just try to get to some wheel, and then things can change. And
Well, very well done. And Sebi has some very kind words to say about you. We spoke to him just before, and you obviously really put your name on the map as well, being up against such a big name of the sport. And he really did think you've got a great future ahead of you. So
great to hear.
But no, congratulations. It was absolutely amazing to watch.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Mark. That is your job over for now. On to the rest of the race news. Obviously, we've got the PTO US Open to talk about. But first, we're going to go through some of the other races, because there was quite a lot of high-level racing over the weekend. We had the European 70.3 Championships in Tallinn. They were won on the women's side by Laura Philipp. Imogen Simmons seems to be back. She was only a minute behind Laura, finishing in second. And then Emma Pallant-Brown didn't have the race that she was hoping for. She finished third, so made it onto the podium, but she did sadly end up on a drip. And put a post up here on her Instagram saying, would have loved to have been involved in that run battle, but unfortunately my battle was with the humidity today. Super chuffed to have stayed upright to the end, which shows some progression. Sorry to have fainted and missed the champagne sprays. Well, hopefully you're feeling better soon, Emma, but congrats.
Not historically done well in heat and humidity, unfortunately, yeah. On the men's side, Peter Hemmerich took the title there of European 70.3 champion, ahead of Mike Phillips from New Zealand and Alessandro Fabian in third. And then we also had 70.3 Gdynia in Poland, which wasn't a 70.3, it was a duathlon. They cancelled the swim there because of the weather, choppy swim conditions. On the women's side, Didi Diedrichs took the win ahead of Marta Legałnik from Poland, and Laura Madsen was in third.
Yeah, the men's race was won by Wilhelm Hirsch, and second we had Strahinja Trakic, and third place was Nico Margraf.
And then we also had Challenge London, a new event, the London Triathlon, which is not a new event at all. It's been around for many, many years. But Challenge took over it, and they've put a middle distance event in for the pros. It was won by Fenella Langridge on the women's side, with Magda Meevoet from South Africa in second and Els Visser in third.
Yeah, it attracted some pretty big names. Sam Laidlow took the men's win ahead of James Teagle and Joshua Lewis. It looked like a pretty cool event. They actually finished inside a massive arena, indoors. So quite unusual. Probably a good thing for having a race in the UK with the weather we've been having.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think the whole race was inside, though. I think most of it was outside. That. They just finished under a roof. And then we had, of course, as we said, the PTO US Open in Milwaukee. The men on Saturday, the women on Sunday, and it was a massive event. Very exciting racing on both sides. We're going to run you through quickly what happened. If you are looking for the full highlights reel, they are on our channel, so you can click after this and go and watch that. But let's run you through exactly what happened. Should we start with the women's?
Okay, I mean, James, people can either go and listen to you for the in-depth highlights or have it here. I know you've already done it, so I mean, is it still in your mind? Can you just run us through the race?
Absolutely.
Off you go.
Sure, Taylor Knibb.
I'll sit back.
Taylor Knibb pretty much had it in the bag from the beginning. Laura Brandon was actually out the water first, and she had a decent gap of about 30 seconds on Taylor Knibb, who was second out the water. But from then on, it was pretty much the Taylor Knibb show. She put more than 2 minutes into the other girls on the bike. 60 Ks into the bike, she had 2 minutes on all of her chases. And then just Lucy Byram from the UK actually put a big surge in on the second half of the bike to close that down and brought Paula Finley with her, but she only closed it down to about 90 seconds. Taylor Knibb still had a decent advantage starting out in the run. And then Ashley Gentle was about 3 minutes behind her off the bike, and Ashley Gentle was obviously the other favourite who we were all watching to see if she could take another PTO Open title. She ran 2 minutes faster than Taylor Knibb, but that left her about 50 seconds shy of catching her. So yeah, it was the Taylor Knibb show, and Taylor Knibb took the title of PTO US Open. Taylor Knibb has had quite a time of it lately. She actually had a stress fracture and took a while to come back from that. She's only done one other race, 70.3 Boulder this year, which she won. And then she also had the US Time Trial Championships, which she came fourth at. So yeah, we knew she could ride a bike. We weren't too sure of her triathlon form, but clearly we now know she is in incredible triathlon form.
Well, I mean, and this being just a year out from the Olympics as well, when she's trying to potentially do cycling and triathlon, obviously of a much shorter distance. I mean, she is hopefully going to be an athlete that's going to be just around for years to come, smashing it up there. It was also really close racing the whole way through. I think, such a packed field, but I mean, from fourth to seventh, it ended up being a bit of a sprint finish between those athletes. So really exciting to watch.
Within a few seconds of each other. Let's run you through those top 10 quickly, just in case you didn't get them. Taylor Knibb first, Ashley Gentle second. Paula Finley was rounding out the podium there. Lucy Byram managed to hold on for fourth. Holly Lawrence in fifth. Sally Salthouse in sixth. Kat Matthews from the UK in seventh. Anne Reichman in eighth. Hayley Chura in ninth. And Tamara Jewett in 10th. And then they gave them cheese to put on their heads.
Because that's what you do in America.
Apparently, yeah. Apparently it's the Green Bay Packers. Their supporters are called cheeseheads, and they wear these things to the football matches. So they put cheese on the heads of all the ladies, as the PTO put on their Instagram here. It's a look. I don't know, it's a strong look.
Yeah, I mean, they all look very uncomfortable with the fact they have cheese on their head, but I guess the fact they have big fat checks in their hands probably helped.
Probably makes it a little bit easier. Yeah, and then the day before the women, we had the men's race, and it was shaping up to be quite the battle between Christian Blumenfeld and Jan Frodeno, including a little tete-a-tete before the race, where they were kind of poking some jabs at each other about their results. Obviously, Jan has been off the boil a little bit for the last couple of years, including knee surgery a year ago, while Christian Blumenfeld has been cleaning up. But then Jan also pointed out that Christian keeps saying that he's going to win all these things and then doesn't. So, it was all shaping up to be quite the race, and that was exactly what we got. A group of 8 men came out the water together, and surprise, surprise, Christian Blumenfeld was in there.
I know.
With Jan Frodeno behind him. So Christian Blumenfeld outswimming Jan Frodeno was, everyone kind of eyebrows raised. That was very impressive. Christian Blumenfeld, of course, trying to get ready for the Olympic Games and the test event, so he is focusing on his swim speed for the short course. But yeah, even so, everyone was a little bit surprised. Jan Frodeno struggled a little bit to zip up his top, and then he ran off with his bike, got to the mountain line and realised he still had his swim skin on his legs.
Jan Frodeno, I missed that.
So he had to stop,
Wow.
lean his bike against his hip while he took off his swim skin one-handed, handed it to a referee before he got back on his bike. He did lose a bit of time, but he did actually manage to catch back onto that group. On the bike, Christian Blumenfeld took off like he was off. The first lap, he put more than 20 seconds into everybody. It was very impressive, and it kind of looked like it was his race to lose. And he actually said afterwards that 60 Ks into the race, by which time Magnus Ditlev had caught up to him and Jan Frodeno was just a few seconds behind him, he still felt like this was his race to lose. He had it in his pocket, as he said, but it wasn't meant to be, because when he got off the bike with the group of Magnus Ditlev, Matthias Margera, Jan Frodeno and Christian Blumenfeld immediately cramped.
Oh.
Immediately, like he got off the bike and he couldn't walk, he couldn't run, he couldn't move his bike, he just stood still while everyone else ran off and got their run shoes. He stood still, and then he tried to put his run shoe on and his leg just wouldn't cooperate and go into the shoe. It was hard to watch, and he was actually reduced to walking a little bit further on again, cramping, stopping, getting running again, cramping again and stopping. So yeah, it kind of watched his race disappear. Meanwhile, Jan Frodeno was running really solidly. Magnus Ditlev had stomach issues, pulled out and didn't finish the race. And Jan Frodeno, well, just stayed solid the whole way, as you would expect the great man to do, and he crossed the line in first with not really being threatened. Behind him, Christian Blumenfeld rallied and got running again, which was very impressive to see, especially because he was running next to someone who was running phenomenally fast. And it's hard to actually put this in perspective, how fast he was running. Jason West got off the bike 5 minutes and 20 seconds behind Jan Frodeno, and he ran all of that into Jan Frodeno. He ran a 56-minute 18K, 56.22, which is an average of 3:07 per kilometer for 18 kilometers. He put 5 minutes into the great man Jan Frodeno. He did come up 30 seconds shy of the win in second place. He did outsprint Christian Blumenfeld, who held on for third. So yeah, an amazing performance by Jason West on the run there, but of course, all the kudos go to Jan Frodeno on his penultimate race of his career. He will be retiring after the Ironman World Champs in Nice next month. This was his penultimate race, as he announced beforehand, so great to see him going out on top. You think you get one more win?
Well, I think now suddenly the bookies are going to have to be changing their odds, aren't they? Because I think a few people would have probably said that, Nice is maybe not going to be the ideal final finale for Jan Frodeno, but he's looking like he's in better form than we might have first thought. So it's just made the World Champs kind of suddenly seem to be even more exciting than it was, which is cool. That's what the sport's about. So
really cool.
Yeah. Well done, James. Thank you for that wonderful race report. I think it's now going to be going round and round in your head after doing it over the weekend as well. But just to recap, the overall top 10 were Jan Frodeno first, Jason West second, Christian Blumenfeld third, as we've spoken a lot about. Then Matthias Margera in fourth, Sam Long just after becoming a father, finishing fifth, Daniel Bakkegaard sixth, David McNamee happy to be back in the top 10 in seventh, Bradley Weiss eighth, Gregory Barnaby in ninth, and Sam Appleton rounding up the top 10.
And we also got a photo of the men in their cheese heads.
Looking equally impressed.
Yeah.
It's now time to take a look at the photos that you guys have sent in. And this month we are asking for anything ahead of the race. So whether it's pre-race nerves, whether it's excitement a few days before. And we've had a nice selection so far. If you guys have got one or you've got a race coming up, then do try and remember to take a photo beforehand. You can send it in to us using the uploader that's on screen now, but also in the description below. And we've got a very recent one here sent in from Agnes at Ironman Tallinn in 2023. Obviously, it's just happened. She says, I've never been so happy at 6 a.m. in my life, in brackets night owl, and only kept getting better. I decided to do Ironman Tallinn 10 months ago, registered, bought a triathlon bike, never even ridden a road bike before, wow, and started training. I did my first triathlon 2 months ago, and now I'm an Ironman. In addition, I received a high five from Laura Philipp the very next day before she crossed the finish line as European champion. It's just a really cool story and a fun picture. I mean, if
Really
that is the
cool.
morning of the race, she's looking very relaxed.
Yeah, really good pre-race picture, that one. And then we had this one from Doug. Bintan 70.3 back in 2019. A pre-race picture with some of the FRT, Friends in Triathlon Singapore team, before a super hot Bintan 70.3 back in 2019. I'll be leaving Singapore this month to move to South Korea. I'll miss all the great fun times we had in training and racing together over the years. He's got a photo of his whole team there, a couple of photos of his whole team, and yeah, I'm sure you can find people to do triathlon with in South Korea too. So
so.
good luck, and I'm sure some of those friends will be friends for life anyway.
Oh yeah. This next one from Enrique in Clermont, Florida. Now, this description says racing a triathlon in Florida that was changed from a tri to a 5K. But what is special about this picture, I was told by 3 different orthopedic surgeons that I will never run again unless I get knee replacement surgery. After that, thanks to our great triathlon community, I had completed 1 Ironman, 2 Ironman 70.3s, and several shorter distance triathlons, and the 5K. This pic is from July 23. Now, we're not sure if that means he's had the knee replacement or he's just running and he's proving the orthopedic surgeons wrong, but whatever it is,
Doesn't matter, as long as he's running.
and you're running pain-free and you look pretty happy in that picture, or is it grimace? Not quite sure, but yeah, fingers crossed you're still running.
Great to see you running, yeah. And then we had this one from Molly in Cassadaga Lake in New York, in the USA. First triathlon in 11 years. Brought my parents to watch and helped me put my sunscreen on. It was July 5th, so thus wearing my USA swimsuit from the July 4th holiday, and you guessed it, I didn't get sunburnt. Some things never change. You slather your kid with sunblock when they're 5, and that's what they look like, and apparently still to this day. At least you didn't get sunburnt.
Exactly. Maybe you've watched our piece on Protect from the Sun. We like that. Well, we love all those pictures, and like we say, if you guys are out there racing, or you've even got a picture from the archive, like one of these this week, then do share it with us. Say what?
This week in Say What, we have quite a few comments actually, all on the same topic, Heather's hands. Yeah, if you haven't seen it already, we got a new video on the channel. We did the Frog Graham round, which is an epic swim run FKT, and we were out there for many, many hours. And there were a lot of physical ailments that we all went through during that, but one of the more humorous ones was Heather's hands.
Yeah.
She developed sausage fingers.
It was the most horrific thing ever.
They're back to normal?
Yes, this is what my hands should look like, okay?
Yeah. Well, let's read some of the comments, because Ember Cord says, oh my God, what happened to Heather's hands?
We've also got this one from Catherine Sean, who says, can anyone tell me why Heather's hands went puffy? And if there's anything to help it? It happens to me when I ride a lot in hot weather, and I've never known how to address it.
Yeah, Jabansky says, that was really cool to watch what you all do. Why did Heather grow man hands? Which I think is a little bit offensive to all the men out there, to be honest, having looked at her hands. Yeah. The Greg says, well done, what happened to Heather's hands? I had the same problem doing the silly swim and figured it was from wearing a wetsuit all day.
I mean, yeah, I mean, there's quite a few more, but I think I do need to do some investigation, because a lot of people were seriously asking like why and saying it's happened to them for different reasons, and I still don't really know. So if anyone's watching and does know why, let us know. But if not, maybe I should.
It's called peripheral edema, I believe, and I think it was probably because if you look closely at the video, Heather was wearing wetsuit sleeves for the whole day, which are a little bit tighter than your normal tri-suit or even arm warmers, and they were probably not allowing the blood to very easily flow back towards her heart, which caused edema in her hands, and they really swelled up.
I think it was probably worse by walking, because my hands did very little running as well, so they were down here all the time, and I was very cold. I don't know. There's a lot of things that could have caused it.
A lot of things because of course it was.
And I did sleep that night like this. That's one way to recover.
It was pretty funny.
A couple of other comments, not about my hands. One from G. Kotahal says, although something like this is beyond my capabilities, this was very inspiring to see. I'm very impressed by all 3 of you, although it was special to see Mark at the finish line looking no more exhausted than after a park run, if that. Anyway, if you ask me, I'd like to see more content like this. Oh, I didn't mean to read that bit.
Well, yeah, if we have to. I think we all really enjoyed that. And we got one more here. Zone 2 Enjoyer says, oh my God, I mean, the best way possible, but that looked absolutely miserable. Amazing how you guys supported each other and were able to pull through. Kudos, great job for everyone. We really did enjoy ourselves out there. I mean, it was top 2 fun, proper top 2 fun. Like,
I think you've forgotten some of the bad bits already.
At no point were we actually laughing and having fun. We were suffering the whole day, but it was very enjoyable. I definitely enjoyed it. I think I'll be heading back to the Lake District soon to do another challenge. Hopefully I can drag Mark and Heather with me. I'm not sure Heather wants to do that to her hands again, but
I might opt for different clothing and maybe find a better forecast. But anyway.
If you do want to watch it, it's on the channel right now. So head over there right now. You can watch it as soon as we sign off. And remember, coming up on the channel later this week, we have Sean Conway's 102, which actually became a 105. Where he did 105 Ironmans in 105 days and broke the world record there. And we headed along to his last day, which ended up not being his last day, and caught up with him. So that video is coming out soon on the channel.